Good morning, Hank. It's Tuesday. So last week I was searching my tag on Tumblr, which I know, dangerous game, and I came across a quote attributed to me that I had no memory of writing. Now, this happens periodically. People misquote me or whatever, but this particular quote had an attribution, Zombicorns, a novella I wrote in 2010 for the Project for Awesome about a zombie apocalypse caused by corn monoculture. Now, I'd almost entirely forgotten about Zombicorns, but that night, perhaps because I'd had a couple glasses of whiskey, I decided to reread it. And I guess I should mention here two things. One, I have a strict policy against rereading my own work. First, because, there are other books. But also, I can't stand rereading my work on account of how I can't change anything anymore, and all I feel when I reread it is like an intense self-loathing. So for instance, I have not reread my first novel, Looking for Alaska, in about 22 years. Sometimes people ask me questions about it, and I'm like, I don't know, that was half my life ago. Secondly, I remember Zombicorns as being truly terrible. And I have to confess that, unfortunately, I kind of think of most of my work that way. I can't think about what is good in those stories or what has resonated with millions of people. I can only think about their insufficiencies and their failures, which, in my mind at least, are legion. Now, some of that is just a byproduct of how my mind works, but some of it is a result of things that happened around 2014, which Hank and I actually discuss in this week's Dear Hank and John. All of which is just to say that for the last 10 years, I've been like, I don't particularly like my work, and I sure as heck don't reread it. Except on that night, I did, and I was surprised to learn that Zombicorns, while certainly not a literary achievement of any significance, is quite enjoyable and contains some genuinely good moments. Maybe I'm just in my I celebrate myself and I sing myself era, but Zombicorns is not nearly as bad as I remember it being. That line quoted on Tumblr is not the only good one. Check out this from the first chapter. A lot of the Z'd-ups smile when you kill them. I don't know if they're grateful or amused or what, but it helps with the guilt, which quite a lot of people feel. I knew a kid once who was the kind of sentimentalist who found it troubling to think of himself as a murderer, so he called killing Z's completing them. I liked that. That kid, his name was Marcos, got Z'd up somehow. We were living in a very nice, heavily chandeliered Lincoln Park townhouse with a few other humanoid types, and then one morning Marcos made a go at my puppy, Mr. President, and I had to complete him. I completed his head all over the dining room credenza of that townhouse, and then me and Mr. President bolted for the proverbial higher ground. I mean, completed his head all over the dining room credenza is objectively good. Now, I want to be clear, I don't labor under the delusion that it's Toni Morrison, but it's good. And being able to like my own work, something I haven't been able to do in quite a while, is fun. It's an extension of what I talked about last week. We do not only make art to delight and instruct others, as Horace said 2,000 years ago, we also make it to delight and instruct ourselves. And rereading Zombicorns, I found it, well, if not particularly instructive, at least a little delightful. Now, it's also, of course, bad in many ways. It's a bit overwritten. You can see some of the plot twists coming. I'm not particularly good at world creation, etc. But the ways in which it is bad were not particularly bothersome to me, which makes me wonder if my other work, like the stuff I actually chose to publish, might also be good, or at least better than I remember it being. So yeah, I've always felt like a bit of an imposter, but then I read this thing I wrote for charity in 2010 and started to believe in myself again. I guess some of the reason this is all going through my head is that I'm writing fiction again, my first novel in almost 10 years, and I'm wondering, of course, whether anything that I have to say will resonate with anyone or be useful to them. But like I said, it's also the job of the story to be useful to me, and that it has been. Now, Hank, most writers I know, both published and unpublished, are profoundly insecure. It's kind of an insecure-making business because, in my opinion anyway, you have to bring your deepest self to the story, which is inherently very vulnerable. Also, you're opening yourself up to public praise and criticism, and when it comes to criticism, most people I know can't fully separate their work from themselves. I know I can't. And so while I am aware that I'm a successful author, I understand it's rare to sell 35 million books and be published in so many languages and so on, I've always been somewhat dismissive, both internally and externally, of my qualities as a writer, almost as a way of trying to protect myself from criticism. Oh, if they say it, it doesn't matter because I already said it. But not long ago, someone on Tumblr, I don't know why I'm talking about Tumblr so much, it's not a good sign, but someone on Tumblr said, when you're dismissive of yourself as a writer, when you say that you're a bad writer or Zombicorns is a bad story or whatever, you're also being dismissive of the people who love that stuff. So I'm not just throwing myself under the bus, I'm also kind of criticizing readers who love my work, which is the last thing I want to do. So here's to Zombicorns, Hank, a zombie apocalypse novella with much to recommend it and some good lines. The guy who wrote it was trying very, very hard, even if he didn't want you to know that. Hank, I'll see you on Friday.